Hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Force Books. Today I want to talk to you guys about the books I read in July and tell you all about them. I actually recorded my wrap up yesterday, but I was using a different camera and the mic did not connect like I thought it would, so I was 100% talking to myself like an hour and recorded on camera audio versus mic audio. So we're doing it again today. I'm proud I'm getting my wrap up out on time. I want to keep this momentum as well as I can and just get my TBR and wrap ups out to you guys as soon as possible, just so you can kind of know what's coming in the months ahead and then my thoughts from the month before. And we can all kind of be on the same page with each other. In the month of July, I read 7 books. 3 were DNFs and 4 I completed. Personally, I include DNFs in my wrap-ups and my ratings, etc. I did spend time with these books, and I felt like even though I DNF'd them, I didn't complete them, I still have enough of an opinion that I want to share it with you guys. Usually I'm not DNFing books until well past the 50% mark. I think the books on this list I got to about the 50, 60, 70% mark before I threw in the towel and decided it wasn't for me. With DNFs, I feel like my TBR is so long that if a book just isn't for me, put it to the side. It didn't work. It's okay. I have so many other books to read, so many other books that I really enjoyed my time with, that DNFing has become easier for me, I want to say. Getting ahead of myself here. One of the books in particular, Tomorrow, I held on for as long as I could because I wanted it to be for me, but ultimately it just didn't work. I hinted at them in my July TBR. From the time I post that video to now, my thoughts about the books have changed now that I really got through them. So I'm excited to talk about it with you guys and we can just get right into it. Of the 7 books that I read, 3 were DNFs and I was really surprised by that. In the midst of having these DNFs, I read some really great books kind of dispersed between them. So it didn't even occur to me that I had quite a few DNFs. So I think that says something about the books we'll talk about in the latter half of this video. But jumping straight into DNFs, my first one was Buffalo Hunter Hunter. And it pained me greatly to have to fall in the camp where it just didn't work for me. This was a book making its rounds on Book Talk and Book YouTube, everything of the sort. And not that my expectations were high, but from the sounds of it, it had to deal with Native Americans and this seemingly curse or some sort of creature. I was just this sounds great. And it's kind of told from this lens of a kind of like epistolary format. So it's through journal entries and you're kind of seeing it back in time, this historical setting. And it kind of had all the marks and makings of a book I thought I'd really like, but unfortunately it just didn't work out for me. I ended up rating this book 1 star. And I think that's just a rating that I have such a hard time with because I really wanted it to work. To tell you guys a little bit about it, I'm going to read you the summary from Goodreads here. But this book is set in Montana and follows a Blackfeet Indian named Goodstab. It begins when a diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall in 2012. What is unveiled is a slow massacre, a nearly forgotten chain of events that goes back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in the transcribed interviews with Goodstab, who shares a narrative of his peculiar and unnaturally long life over a series of confessionals. In this book, you are introduced to a character in the modern day in 2012. This is the granddaughter of the Lutheran pastor whose journal and diary we'll be reading through to tell the story of Goodstab and the 1912 setting. Goodstab comes to city, town, for lack of a better way to put it right now, and he goes into Arthur's confessional and essentially tells us a story that we read in Buffalo Hunter Hunter. There is something in this land of Montana where the cattle are dying. These weird circumstances are happening and they're not quite sure what it is. We're told from the perspective of Goodstab that his people experience something similar. In some reviews that I watched, it was said around the 40-50% mark is where things really pick up. It lays a lot of groundwork in the beginning. And I would say that's true. Up until the 50% mark, not a lot was happening. You're definitely laying the groundwork, getting to know these characters, Goodstab's backstory, and I don't know, that was just really hard for me. I feel with most of my books, I feel at least by the 50% mark, something should have happened to grip you. Buffalo Hunter Hunter had all the makings of what I thought would be a book that worked for me. I love the idea of being in this Native American setting, this kind of the mythology that surrounds some of their culture, I want to say. They have skinwalkers, for example. And this is not a spoiler, Goodstab is not a skinwalker, but that's a part of Native American lore, if you will. And I just thought ooh, it'll be something creepy and this weird phenomenon that's happening from his time into flash forward in 1902, and why is he still alive? Had all the makings of such a good story. Again, I really stuck this one out. I think I got to the 60-70% mark and just, again, like threw in the towel. When I went to Goodreads to mark it as a DNF and provide my rating, I saw other reviews having that same sentiment, that the book was slow in the beginning, and it was just kind of hard to get on board with the story. So unfortunately, I had to rate this one a lot lower than I wanted to. If you had a good time with this book, I'm very happy for you. I wish I could fall into that camp as well, but unfortunately, this was just going to be on my DNF list. The next book that I DNF'd this month was called There's Someone Inside Your Home. This was a book I found from Instagram. It was one of those posts where it's like a carousel of top thriller or mysteries that someone has read, and I actually got There's Someone Inside Your House as well as Her Last Breath, which is the book I mentioned in my July TBR that I wanted to read. It was about the two girls that went cave diving. I think for my benefit, that book wasn't ready at the library. I was still on the wait list by the time the month was coming to an end. It just wasn't quite my turn yet. I actually got my notification this morning that I could borrow Her Last Breath, so I'm going to have that in my August wrap up for you guys. But anyway, taking a step back, let me tell you about There's Someone Inside Your House. Makani Young thought she left her dark past behind her in Hawaii, settling in with her grandmother in landlocked Nebraska. She's found new friends and has even started to fall for mysterious outsider Ollie Larson. But her past isn't far behind. Then, one by one, the students of Osborne Hugh begin to die in a series of gruesome murders, each with an increasingly grotesque flair. As the terror grows closer and her feelings for Ollie intensify, Makani is forced to confront her own dark secrets. So right off the bat, when I found this post on Instagram, it was talking about that there is essentially like a home invasion element to this, which is my nightmare, and the killer person in the house would like slowly move things around, and then that's how you would know like someone was there. So for example, it's like when you come home, you put your car keys in the same place. The person in your home would take your car keys from like the hook on the wall and then place it on the kitchen table. So something you technically could have done, and it may have just been like an autopilot moment, you just weren't paying attention. But anyway, they'd move objects around the house and it would make you think like, I don't remember doing that, but maybe I did, wasn't paying attention, whatever. And it ultimately ends up being like an intruder. And so I thought this book would be more geared toward mystery and thriller and like murder and home invasion, like scary shit, and it'd be scary. And that's why I say maybe it's user error in this instance, because I did not read the summary of this book before going into it. So I thought it was very like thriller forward. I found we spent a lot of time with the young characters, Makani, her friends, Ollie, and they're all in high school. I'm 30 years old. I just could not jive with the conversations or like the romance between Ollie and Makani, which is not a spoiler. You find out very early on that they have like a crush on each other. They're into each other. It's not really romance. It's just young people trying to figure it out. But I got to like the 50% mark and I was like, where's the murder? Where's the crime? I just don't feel like it ever came. It was so bizarre. I was just not expecting to spend so much time with like the characters in high school, that setting, Makani finding her footing in her new life in Nebraska, her feelings for this guy. And yeah, it was really strange. I felt like, I was like, this is not kind of what it was said to be, granted on like a 2-sentence Instagram post. Maybe I just went into this with the wrong expectation. Ultimately, I DNF'd this one. It was not what I was expecting, and I didn't love being kind of in the minds of these younger characters. I wanted thriller, I wanted scary, I wanted creeping dread of like, oh my God, is there someone in my house? You know what I mean? So that's why this book ended up on my DNFs. The last book I DNF'd in July also pains me to admit. It was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And it makes me so sad. I really wanted to love this one. Ultimately, I rated it 2 stars. I think by the time I decided to DNF it, I had about 100 pages left. And I just felt like I didn't really care what happened to the characters. Something in particular with Sadie's backstory just rubbed me the wrong way. It just made me not want to continue with her character. So to tell you guys a little bit about the book before I tell you my thoughts, it's about 2 friends, Sam and Sadie. They meet when they're younger. Sadie's sister is in the hospital because she's sick, and so she's spending a lot of time there. Sam is also in the hospital because he has a bad leg, and he's essentially trying to get help and physical therapy for it. When they're in the hospital, Sam is playing video games in like a kid's room, and Sadie comes in and they start playing a game together. The nurses notice that Sam is really talking to her, and he's not really opening up yet, but the fact that Sam is talking is kind of like leaps and bounds from where he was before. He was very quiet, not really talking much with the nurses, and so they asked Sadie, like, hey, can you keep coming back and spending time with him? Like, the interaction, him talking, like it's good for him. And so she does. Sadie is a very like numbers person, kind of wanted to keep the data, so to speak. So she ended up getting this like time log of all her time she spent with Sam. He finds out about this time log and he's like, hey, are you like spending time with me because we're really friends, or is this like charity for you? And she's like, no. Like, I love spending time with you, but I also like just wanted the numbers for myself. But he just doesn't take it well. Flash forward to when they're young adults and they meet again. Sam is getting out of the subway, I think up in New York, if I'm not mistaken, but he sees Sadie, he calls out to her. And when they run into each other again, she has been studying game design at MIT and Sam is studying at Harvard. And Sadie gives Sam her recent game that she created and said, hey, like play it sometime and let me know what you think. And from there, Sam plays her game, ends up reaching out to her. And from there, they decide to make their own game. And that's when we get into this video game design development aspect of the book, which I really liked. I'm a gamer, and so I thought I would really love these sections, and I did. It's like the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. The video game aspect like really works for me. What didn't work for me was some of the context of their backstories, like Sadie in particular. I want to go into a little bit of spoilers, so when I get there, I'll let you know. And I put a timestamp so you can jump ahead, so you can skip it if you'd like. The bits of Sadie's backstory that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, or I just couldn't really jive with, it put me off from being in that character's head and enjoying it. So getting into spoiler territory quickly, PSA, if you don't want to know the spoilers, I'm going to put a timestamp on the screen about where you can jump ahead. I'll try and get through this part quickly and see you in a minute. So the part of Sadie's story that I didn't really love was her relationship with Dov. He was her professor in school. If I remember correctly, when they started seeing each other, he was not her teacher anymore, but it just felt super icky. He's not like an old man. I think he's in his 30s. And Sadie is like 19. But it just felt like the power dynamic, like used to be your teacher. He's also just like a very objectively icky person. And I just did not like that for her. There was just moments in their relationship that just gave me like a huge ick. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube without getting knocked for it, but their relationship involved experimenting with sex and S&M. Although their experiences were very consensual and pushed a line, so to speak, Dov just did things to her where it was never assault or non-consensual or coercion, like nothing like that, but it was just like humiliating and awkward. And Sadie even mentions like not really wanting to do it just because she's just like over him, like he's just being annoying and mean. He never like forced her into doing anything. So I will say that it's just awkward to read when like in her head she's just like, yeah, you're so effing annoying. I look back on like my 19-year-old self, like making dumb decisions, and like you don't know any better. I think maybe that's why like at my age now, I'm just like, he is objectively such a bad person. Stop talking to him, you know? That was the part of Sadie's backstory that I just like had a lot of trouble being in her head and reading through those chapters of her story. Okay, so coming back together, we're out of spoiler territory. Fear not, I'm done. I got it off my chest. Same thing as what I've said about the others. I was really excited for this one, and unfortunately it just didn't land. I know this book has been making its rounds recently, so if you had a different experience with this book, please let me know down below. I'd love to get your thoughts. That's the fun part of books. We're all gonna have a different experience. Tomorrow was my last DNF for the month, and the rest of the books on my list were 4 stars and up. The next book I read in July was Howling Dark. This is the second book in the Sun Eater series, and I rated it 4 stars. When I was filming my July TBR, I was about halfway through that book, I want to say, and I was worried I wasn't going to get to some of the other books that I ended up finishing this month because the Sun Eater series, these books are like 600-700 pages a piece, so it's a journey to get through them. I want to be mindful about what I tell you about this book because this is a type of series where book 2 absolutely has to do with what happens in book 1. So if you are interested in reading this series, I don't want to go too heavy into spoilers. I feel like the Goodreads description does a good job of telling you what this book is about without spoiling all the things that take place in book 1 that get you here. Let me read that to you guys now. Hadrian Marlowe is lost. For half a century, he has searched for the farther suns for the lost planet of Vergosos, hoping to find a way to contact the elusive alien Cielsen. He has not succeeded, and for years has wandered among the barbarian Normans as captain of a band of mercenaries. Determined to make peace and bring an end to a nearly 400 years of war, Hadrian must venture beyond the security of the Solan Empire and among the extrasolarians who dwell between the stars. There he will not face only the aliens he has come to offer peace, but content with the creatures that were once human with traitors in his midst, and with a meeting that will bring him face to face with no less than the oldest enemy of mankind. If he succeeds, he will usher in a peace unlike any other in recorded history. If he fails, the galaxy will burn. For as long as these books are, I have really enjoyed my time with Hadrian and his band of friends and his crew and everything of the sort. In the first book, I think he is maybe a teenager, like 14 or 15. And then in this book, he's 35. But to follow Hadrian, again, through this mission of finding this planet that no one knows where it is, which is Vergosos, trying to make contact with this assumed very violent alien species. That is his whole premise, and trying to bring peace to this 400-year-long war. Millions have died and many, many planets have just been destroyed because of this war. I really enjoyed the romantic parts of Hadrian's life, the parts where it's almost reflective and philosophical, and like you see his mind growing as he gets older. I think this book is really well done. I did experience this book through audio, and the audiobook narrator was incredible. There's a lot of characters in this series, and he voices all of them. In the book, there's this emperor type character, and the audiobook narrator does such a good job with having this like veracity in his voice, and I was gripped. Like, I loved it. Because they are so long, I listened to Howling Dark while I was working. Sometimes with books that long, it can kind of like break your concentration a bit. No, with Howling Dark, I really loved it. I think I could probably make this one a 5-star rating. I think I'm being a little critical, but the books I did rate 5 stars for this month, I would read them again. I really enjoyed my time with them, and that's the only reason this book did not receive a full 5 stars. It didn't quite hit the mark that the other books did, but nonetheless, I highly recommend this series if you're into sci-fi. I mentioned in my July TBR that there was a few quotes from Howling Dark that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to read one of them to you. This is specifically about Hadrian and his love interest, Jinan. Her fingers squeezed mine, but the smile slackened, as though it remained on her face by only half a tension of her muscles and not at all by her heart. So in this conversation, they're talking about maybe having a future together. After like searching for this planet of Vergosos, being on this voyage for decades, like maybe we can settle down and have this life together. And he's wanting to do that, or kind of pitching this dream to her, and she's not quite sold on it. But I thought the line about that her smile remained on her face by only half a tension of her muscles and not at all by her heart, I was like, oh, like I just felt like it was such a, like, so well said, as you kind of have this like smirk on your face, like, yeah, the dream is very sweet, but like in your heart, you know, that it may not be possible. I just really liked that bit of the writing, and I thought it was well said. The remainder of the books are going to be all 5-star ratings. The first book is going to be The Unmaking of June Farrow. This was the book I mentioned in my July TBR that my best friend recommended to me, and I loved this book. It was so fun to be able to like nerd out with her about it as I was going through the story. I was like actively, loudly, in real life, rooting for these characters to figure it out. I was so into this book, into the story, into the characters, and that's why I got 5 stars. And I had to put this book down and go back to work. I was like annoyed that I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to know what's going to happen. But this book like knocked it out of the park for me. To tell you a little bit about it, this book takes place in a small town in North Carolina. Farrow women are known for their thriving flower farm and the mysterious curse that has plagued their family line. The whole town remembers the madness that led to Susanna Farrow's disappearance, and this is June's mother, leaving June to be raised by her grandmother and haunted by rumors. It's been a year since June started seeing and hearing things that weren't there. Faint wind chimes, a voice calling her name, and a mysterious door appearing out of nowhere. The signs of what June knew was coming. But June is determined to end the curse once and for all, even if she must sacrifice finding love and having a family of her own. After her grandmother's death, June discovers a series of cryptic clues regarding her mother's decades-old disappearance, except they only lead to more questions. Could the door she once assumed was a hallucination be the answer she's been searching for? The next time it appears, June realizes she can touch it and walks past the threshold. When she embarks on a journey that will not only change both the past and the future, but also uncover... It's incredible to me that I can read a book, but I can't read out loud. I don't understand. And when she does, she embarks on a journey that will not only change both the past and the future, but also uncover the lingering mysteries of her small town and untangle her heart in an epic star-crossed love. I think the Goodreads description does a great job of laying the groundwork of where we are in the first 50 pages of the book to the time June crosses that threshold by going through the door. I love the elements of time, going through this threshold. All of her decisions mattered. The people that she met, the connections that she had, the love she experienced, and then like the weight of that. You don't just like get it for free. By choosing one thing, you miss out on another. Kind of like the idea of having like a multiverse, like there's infinite versions of you. One makes a right, one makes a left, so on and so forth. And each decision June makes or decides to live with, it affects something. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed kind of unraveling this mystery, this curse, so to speak, that plagues women in her family. And it was just a really fun book. And I love my time with it and highly recommend it to you guys. June's love interest in the book, me and my friend had a crush on him. All the fictional men you're gonna fall in love with, I feel like they all smell like cedar, sandalwood, or something woodsy, and that's exactly what he was described to smell like. On this farm, there is tobacco, and so he kind of has this like smoky, woodsy kind of smell. And I was like, I already know this will be the one that everyone loves. And sure enough, me and my friend also were like, we're in love with him. He's the greatest guy ever, and yeah, it was a very sweet story, and it was fun. The last 2 books this month were a part of the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gellig. It is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. Rachel Gellig is the author that wrote The Night and the Moth, and I fell in love with that book when I first read it a couple months ago. I actually have The Night and the Moth rented through Kindle Unlimited right now because I want to reread it again. I love the characters. I love the gothic theme. That's kind of like a through line through the books I've experienced from Rachel Gellig. One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns both have this gothic, fantasy, magical element to it. I love her writing. I love her world building and kind of the immersion I experienced while I was reading her books. I'll start by reminding you guys that all of the characters in these books have the surname of trees. So it's like Elspeth Spindle, Raven Yew. And it was fun actually looking up these trees and that these trees are a good representation of their characters. Starting off with book 1, we are following a character named Elspeth Spindle. Elspeth needs a monster. The monster might be her. Elspeth Spindle needs more than luck to stay safe in the eerie, mist-locked kingdom she calls home. She needs a monster. She calls him the Nightmare, an ancient mercurial spirit trapped in her head. He protects her. He keeps her secrets, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. When Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road, her life takes a drastic turn. Thrust into a world of shadow and deception, she joins a dangerous quest to cure the kingdom of the dark magic infecting it. Except the highwayman just so happens to be the king's own nephew, captain of the Destries, and guilty of high treason. He and Elspeth have until solstice to gather 12 Providence cards, the keys to the cure. But as the stakes heighten and their undeniable attraction intensifies, Elspeth is forced to face her darkest secret yet. The Nightmare is slowly, darkly taking over her mind, and she may not be able to stop him. In One Dark Window, the mist that surrounds the kingdom reminds me of the Blood over Brighthaven, so the blight that was in that book, and it would harm people. Similar, the mist is the same thing. Everyone in this story carries some sort of charm with them to protect them from the mist. In the mist, there is this infection that you can get. This isn't a spoiler. It's within like the first page of the book. Elspeth gets sick and she has the infection. The telltale signs that you are infected is that the veins in your body will turn black. Elspeth's family has kept her hidden and protected because if you're caught with the infection, you are axed. If you survive the infection, you are given some type of magic, but it differs from person to person. And then when you get the magic, there's also this element of degradation. So like the summary was saying, nothing comes for free. By calling on this magic and summoning it, there's also a negative effect it has on you by using the magic, which is what Elspeth is experiencing by this nightmare creature in her head. The other element of this book I really enjoyed was the Providence cards. I thought that was such a cool magic system. For example, there is the Nightmare card, which allows you to speak essentially telepathically into someone else's mind. There is a Maiden card, which makes you like beautiful, immaculate, perfect. But the con with that card is that if you use it for too long, it will essentially make you like cold and unfeeling and withdrawn. The other example is the Scythe card, if I'm not getting them mixed up. But this one allows you to control their people. But if you use this card too long, then there's like this excruciating pain that comes with it. Throughout the story, the characters are only using it for like intermittent periods of time, so they aren't experiencing the negative side effects for too long. Be right back. I'm gonna go meet my friend for ice cream and finish this. I am back from my ice cream date with my friend. Hi Reem, if you're watching. I had vanilla ice cream with Oreos and strawberry. So picking up where I left off, I believe the last thing I was talking about was the different Providence cards that there were. To explain it to you, there is a book this whole kingdom has kind of lived by called The Old Book of Alders, where this whole story is told of the Shepherd King, the individual that kind of like made these cards, like had them come to be. There's like a spirit of the forest that is also tied into this book in the Shepherd King story, which is also why everyone has the last name, the surname of a tree. So that's kind of where the story begins to intertwine and why it has a structure that it does. One thing I really love about Rachel Gellig's writing, and I think I've mentioned this every time I speak of one of her books, is the immersion. When I say that, in these settings, it's the writing, it's how things are described, but I think a good example of this, especially in One Dark Window, is when sensation is used. It just brings you further into immersion and makes you like really see the story in your mind's eye. And I wanted to read you a few quotes from how the nightmare is talked about from Elspeth's perspective. The nightmare twisted in the darkness like a wolf stamping grass before lying down upon it. His laughter dripped like water down the walls of a cavern, echoing, then fading into hollow silence. The nightmare remained quiet, his claws tapping a sharp rhythm. Click, click, click. What I love about these is when the quote from he's like a wolf stomping grass before lying down. Like what I envision is when a wolf is in like predator mode and it's like back is haunched and it's kind of in that like predatory kind of like pacing position. It's like a dog whenever it kind of like makes a circle on its bed and then it lies down. I can just see that in my head. Other quote I really loved was when it equated the nightmare's laughter to like walls dripping down on the walls of a cave. It's this guttural sound and something that like deep and dark and scary, and it just sounds like unearthly. Those are all the words I would use to describe like how that scene makes me feel. I'm hoping I'm explaining that well. Beyond the book having a good story and plot and twists and characters, it's writing like that I think really kind of pushes a book to a next level, and why I love Rachel Gellig's writing and why I say that she's an auto-buy author for me. All in all, I think it's very clear why I rated this book 5 stars. I highly recommend it, this book and the second. I really loved these, and my only critique is that the book was over. I wish I could stay in this world a little bit longer. So the last book I read in July wrapped up the Shepherd King duology, and I read Two Twisted Crowns. If you'd like to read this series or you haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, I will put a timestamp on the screen of where you can kind of skip ahead. I'm going to be reading the Goodreads description. There's like a little bit of spoilers. In my opinion, you can kind of infer like what has happened in the first book that led us into the second, why that story needs to continue. So fair warning, if you really want to kind of go into this experience or this story blind or not knowing what's happening, follow the timestamp on the screen and I will see you there in a second. For those that are still sticking around, let me read this to you quickly. Elspeth and Raven have gathered most of the 12 Providence card, but the last and most important one remains to be found, the Twin Alders. If they're going to find it before the solstice and cure the kingdom of the dark magic infecting it, they will need to journey beyond the dangerous mist-cloaked forest that surrounds their kingdom. And the only one who can lead them there is a monster that shares Elspeth's head, the Nightmare, and he's not eager to share any longer. What I loved about the second book is that it carried on the story from the first book very well. Like I've said before, series can be tough where like the first book is stellar, really fantastic, knowledge at the park, and the second book doesn't quite stick the landing or maybe end how you wanted. I liked with the second book, it continued off the first story very well. You are shown more characters that are still present in the first book, but just don't have their story as fleshed out. And those characters are Elm, which I think he is the cousin of Raven or just very close in the family. I can't remember the relation off the top of my head. And then Elspeth's cousin Ione, if I'm saying her name correctly, but you're following their story. They are involved in book 1 as well, but it's just fun following other characters. And you're also following Elspeth, Nightmare, and Raven too, but no one falls through in the story or like kind of has like a plot line that isn't quite on par with everyone else, or you're like, okay, why are we even talking about Elm, for example? Like I never felt that way. I enjoyed each of their stories. I enjoyed being in each of their heads. I think it's a well-written story that you can care about each one and it doesn't take away from the main kind of through line of the book. In this duology, the Nightmare was one of my favorite characters. I think it's becoming a theme on this channel where you guys will see I love creepy, gothic, scary shit. And I love how the Nightmare is portrayed, whether it be like the patting of the wolf, this snake-like figure in the back of Elspeth's mind, like she can feel him like behind her eyes with like the click, click, click of his claws. Like I love stuff like that. And in book 2, you spend more time with Nightmare and like the humor that he has. And it's just dry, like Saronic humor. It's nothing like he's like a jester or anything, but I like it. Again, my only critique of this book was that it was not long enough. I loved these characters. I loved being in this world. It was easily rated 5 stars for me. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here more than you know. I think it's incredible in just a couple of videos I have posted, seeing the view count, seeing my little subscriber number go up. It's just amazing to me. Like I imagine the views on my videos, like that many people in a room, like looking back at me as I talk about these books. I just think that's incredible. This is very much an outlet for me. I love talking books, and just to have that community discourse online is exactly what I was looking for. Always comment down below. Always tell me if any of my book recommendations recommendations made it to your TBR. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If there's any books that you want to recommend to me based on the reading that I like, I'm more than happy to take those recommendations, so always leave them down below. I would love to forever expand my TBR, and that's of course where any of us are headed at this rate, as much as we love books. My TBR is forever expanding, so by all means, please add to it. I would love to get your recommendations and see what interests you. On my first video, one of my friends watching it has shared it with her friend, and she had recommended a book to me when I was talking about the Library of Amorlin, and I just love the library setting and the knowledge and this like cathedral of books. All of that to say, she recommended this book to me. I borrowed the hardback from my friend, but it is called Cloud Cuckoo Land. Look at that. The gold on there is stunning. But just know that your recommendations to me, I promise I see them. I promise I will look into them. And if anything, it may not work out for me, but I'm more than happy to give it a shot. That's the fun of having like my little corner of the internet and my community. So thank y'all for being here. All that being said, I am excited to see you guys in my next video. I will have my August TBR up shortly, so we all know it's coming for the end of the month and what's on my reading list. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe. But I love seeing the interaction go up and having the opportunity to talk with you guys. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.